Hey, this is Charlie Wilkins, the Amp Dude, and got a special guest with us today. We have Chris Benson from Benson Amplification. Chris, thanks for taking the time to meet with me today. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, absolutely. So, I was out at your shop about 2 or 3 years ago, and you gave me a tour and let me hang out for a little bit. And man, I had a great time, and let me plug into one of your amps and everything, and that was real cool. What have you been doing since then?
Well, we're still in that same space, so I'm actually upstairs in that warehouse that you came to visit, and we kind of like took over the whole thing, and I have like kind of a studio spot up here. So yeah, let's see. We did a little moving around, um, expanded, and made more amps than we've ever made last year, and
Wow.
we did the Beach Boys collab thing with the reverb tremolo and released a few pedals. So yeah, we've just been going.
Very cool, man. So for viewers that aren't familiar with Benson Amps, can you tell me what inspired you to start making amps?
Yeah, I mean, I was just a musician, kind of gigging around Seattle. I still am a musician, I guess, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just kind of plugged into like a Fender Bassman one day and was just really inspired by it, and kind of like that's kind of sparked something like, hey, this sounds a lot different than anything else I've used. And it kind of started my chasing down tones and figuring out why things sounded the way they did, and
Yeah.
that kind of inspired me to get into it initially.
So did you have an electronics background, or do you have any experience working on amps? Or
No, I was a carpenter, and so it was pretty handy. So I could I knew that I could probably figure it out, and pretty fearless when it comes to working around electricity as well. So
yeah,
that
yeah.
probably didn't hurt.
Okay. And what were some of the biggest challenges that you had, starting out?
I mean, let's see, man.
Did you go through a lot of prototypes and make a lot of mistakes? Did you
I,
have problems, getting your amps into the hands of players?
I mean, honestly, it was pretty much all like until I actually started the business part of it, which is its own can of worms. It was just like
Yeah,
eating candy. I was just
yeah,
messing around with circuits and trying stuff out, and I was just having a great time because there's no stakes either. Like, no, there's no expectations. I was just kind of
right.
like chasing tone. So that at first it was really fun, and once you start adding employees into the mix and expectations, and people know
Yeah.
who you are, it changes it a little bit, and you're trying to keep this thing afloat. But back in the day, it was great. It's still great, but it's a different.
Yeah, yeah. No, 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 I hear what you're saying. So it seems like at first it was like kind of a hobby, kind of messing around, and then it turned into a business. And that transition from going to
Yeah,
like a hobby to a business was, I guess, was kind of a huge challenge. And I think that a lot of builders or a lot of entrepreneurs, in general, kind of go through that. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm sure that was kind of tough.
yeah.
You know,
Especially if you're someone who didn't have any business experience whatsoever. It was just kind of like, why do I need a logo? And
yeah, you got to figure it all out.
just put up like an Angel Fire webpage or something like that.
Yeah. So when you started out, were you repairing amplifiers or modding, or were you just kind of working on your own amps, or?
Yeah. So once I got into it, got the bug, I built up I played the Bassman initially, and I was like, well, I want to make one of those.
Yeah.
So I started kind of poking around on the internet, and everyone was like, well, that's not the Bassman you want. You want a 5F6A, tweed Bassman.
Yeah.
Those sound better. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just try to make one of those. And so that was the first amp I kind of stuck together, and I just did a lot of research, and yeah, I bought the parts slowly over time, just as cheap as I could get it, because it was a hobby, so I was trying to not buy mercury magnetics transformers or whatever. Um, and eventually, I had it all together and flipped it on, and the thing actually worked.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I've got stories about stuff that I worked on where I, plugged it in and it didn't work. So it's great that yours did.
Well, it was a miracle that it did. Honestly, I was shocked. Um,
Right.
I guess I had done it correctly. Well, I thought I had done it correctly. I later found out that I had no understanding of the concept of biasing power tubes.
Ah, yeah.
So kind of they were kind of red plating.
So bias was way off. Yeah, I get it. But hey, it worked, right? So great
Yeah,
start.
yeah. I still remember that like it was yesterday. Just tubes crackling and the initial sound was like, oh my gosh, this is cool.
That is cool. So did you start off with a kit, or did you just literally buy all the parts yourself and just start putting them together?
I just I was too cheap to buy a kit. I knew that I could probably save $50, $75 if I spent 120 hours researching
Yeah.
where to get these other parts instead. So I actually, to save the money, this is probably better in the long run because I actually had to experience part sourcing and figure out like, oh, is this the right transformer set or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah.
So I actually just built it up from scratch. A friend of mine had given me a Baseman 10
Yeah.
chassis where the amp didn't work, and instead of fixing the amp, it probably just had like one bad cap or something. I gutted it and like took the transformers out and
Cool.
everything. It's like
Yeah.
just had like metal, and then I bought all the other components. Um, Obviously, I would just fix it these days or use the existing transformers.
Yeah.
But I completely stripped it and then built the 5F6A into that using a turret board.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. I mean, great start.
yeah, and I later used those transformers in my second build once I realized that they were perfectly fine, serviceable transformers that were probably not broken. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. So what was your first actual Benson amplifier?
Um, let's see. So I started doing this around 2007, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh, and then so from having built that first one, I kind of talked my way into a repair job with my friend Ben Verellen of Verellen Amps in Seattle.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was a couple years further down the road and actually had gone and gotten an EE degree, so he really knew his analog stuff. And so I started working for Ben, just kind of doing repair stuff and building, and I kind of learned on the job. So within a couple years, I was pretty good at repair, but at first it was just like a long learning curve, and Ben would kind of help me out with stuff I couldn't figure out. So I was repairing amps, mostly vintage stuff, and that was a huge education for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went on to continue. I repaired amps for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But Benson actually started. I was like simultaneously like developing my own circuit. My own pet perfect guitar amp for me. In the evenings at the shop, and I was still a gigging musician, so I would drag amps out to shows, and other guitar players would kind of plug into them and check them out. And eventually, I had a buddy who hooked me up with an entrepreneur who was like, "I hear you're making really good stuff, really interesting stuff. Maybe you should start an amp company." And so he kind of helped me out with that, like give me a small investment and but mostly just advice and kind of holding my hand through the process of
Right.
starting a business. So the first actual Benson amp that said Benson on it, Benson Monarch, was 2012.
2012.
Yep. Yep. But I had some prototypes that, didn't have any of the branding or faceplates or anything in 2010 and after that. So yeah, it took a couple
Cool.
years to get that going.
So tell me about the Monarch. What is it?
So the Monarch's kind of what most of our amps are based off of. It was initially like a 15-watt amp with volume tone, and its big feature was a British American switch. So you can go from a British voice to an American voice, because was my whole man. I want an amp that does like the Marshall Vox, but also will do like Fender things as well in the same amp, so I don't have to spend the money to get more than one amp.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and
cool.
but I had stolen, well, not stolen, I guess, been inspired by a bunch of circuits I had worked on over the years. Just the idea of like building up harmonics and compression and power supply design and all these things. So it was really an original circuit, but it probably has DNA from, 10, 15 different, vintage amps that I really liked aspects of and kind of tried to combine them into one thing.
Right, gotcha. So earlier in the conversation you were talking about that transformers. So what role do the transformers and components play in shaping your amp's tones?
More than I initially thought. So I was like initially using Hammond stuff, which is serviceable. It's good,
yeah,
but it's kind of cheaper, and it doesn't take much experience to realize that the transformers really do contribute to the sound. I built a box that I can A/B different output transformers and power transformers in amps. And once I started doing that, this is probably around 2013, 2014. Once I had the ability to switch between transformers and hear what it did, it's like, oh, okay. Well, now here's this whole other aspect of voicing an amp and getting it to sound a certain way that I didn't really give any credit to before. And that's just kind of, it's so important. These days we use Sour Sound transformers. I work with a local manufacturer named Brian Sowers. He's I would guess he's probably the most exciting magnetics engineer in the world now. He's working on a bunch of secret projects that are like kind of like, are you serious?
Wow.
He's got a bunch of but he was a competing amp tech here in Portland.
Yeah.
And we were probably like mortal enemies at one point, but I went into manufacturing, he went into magnetics, and now he's, a good friend of mine. And so he really knows how to voice a guitar amp transformer and to design it for a purpose.
Yeah.
I will tell him what I want and he'll send me something and it's like, okay, this is cool. Maybe a little bit more, extension on the bottom end, or he speaks the same language as an amp tech, so I can just I can tell him things and he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And the next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I've got like a new prototype that I can tack in and be like, yeah, this is it. So
that's pretty amazing.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, he's I challenge anyone to find a transformer manufacturer willing to work with them on that level.
No kidding. Wow, that is unbelievable. So, how do you approach, voicing your amplifiers? And are you using any other types of transformers? I mean, are you using his exclusively, or will you use a different transformer, based on how you want to voice the amp?
For the expensive stuff, I'm using his exclusively. We have some lower wattage, 5 watts that we actually did a collaboration with Triad, which a lot of people know them from the 50s Fenders.
Right.
They still exist. They're still making great transformers. They just happen to not make guitar amp transformers for a very long time.
Yeah.
When they wanted to re-enter that market, they approached me and asked if we wanted to be part of their pilot program of getting back into guitar stuff. Yeah. So I have another set that's made in the Philippines that Triad makes for me, and that's what goes into all our 5-watt amps for the most part. And those are, we try to keep the price down on those as well.
Yeah.
So we've been Triad, between Triad and Sowers, that pretty much accounts for all of our transformers though.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about tube biasing? I understand that you have some sort of innovative tube biasing method.
You might be thinking about the germanium biasing, the germanium transistor
Oh, the
biasing
thermal.
in
Yeah.
the fuzz pedals.
Ah, got you. Okay.
I'm pretty basic when it comes to tube biasing though. Like most of the stuff I do is cathode biased, so
Yeah.
you can just put any tubes in the amp and it'll,
Bias.
as long as they're matched, they'll bias up correctly. And I try to make it easy on musicians. You know, if you're
Yeah.
if you're touring in through the Midwest and maybe you don't have an amp tech close to where you're playing, but there's a guitar center and your amp goes down, maybe you can like go to the guitar center, buy a set of power tubes,
Yeah.
pop them in. You don't have to buy some. It's good to go. So we really do have like touring working musicians in mind when we make decisions like that. But the germanium thing's interesting. I actually have a patent on it. Uh, so the whole problem with germanium transistors was they bias up differently depending on how hot they are, like physically hot or cold, you know, temperature.
Right. Yeah.
So I kind of came up with an idea. I mean, the implementation wasn't actually that hard, just no one had done it. Where you heat up the germanium transistors to a certain point. So whatever the weather is, whatever situation you're in, they're always going to bias up to the exact same point, and so they're always going to sound consistent. And you might be able to, you know, take them on tour or take them to places that you wouldn't normally be able to take germanium. So
Got you. Got you. So just so viewers kind of understand what we're talking about here, you're talking about your pedals. You're talking about
Yep.
So the sonic box, and then what's the other one called? The germanium fuzz? Or?
Yeah, the first one was the germanium fuzz, and then we did the stomp box as well.
Yeah. So on some of the older, well-known pedals like the fuzz face and everything, I guess they're very temperamental, depending upon the weather and the climate that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started building pedals around the same time as the amps, you know, back in 2007, and I think one of the first pedals I made was a Fuzz Factory clone.
Yeah.
That was just, you know, clone pedals. And I realized pretty quick that temperature played a pretty, you know, important role in them. You know, I'd build the fuzz up, it'd sound great, and then I'd take it to a show and it would sound totally different. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, well, I guess I can't really take this around and count on it. So the problem had always kind of been in my mind. I was always kind of thinking about it, and then I was looking at a solid state like thermostat schematic one day for some reason. I think I was just like, I wonder what's in that thing. So I started reading about it. It's like, I bet I could actually incorporate this into solving the germanium transistor problem.
Genius.
Just
Wow.
really dedicated.
Wow, unbelievable.
Thanks.
And you said that you have a patent on it too, as well, right?
Yeah, you know, I thought maybe like Dunlop or whoever owns the fuzz face now would be like, oh, cool, you solved this problem, and they would license the technology from me.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure they even know the problem exists. They're just like, what?
They probably don't care.
So I did not license it to them, but there's some other kind of smaller builders that are toying with implementing it into their stuff. So
Yeah.
I might be able to license it to one of them. We'll see. But
Yeah.
it was fun going through the patent process, anyways, just to kind of see how to do it.
Huh, I'm gonna have to hit you up offline about that because I have something that I'm trying to patent. So I
Well,
love
yeah.
your experience.
I've got some great attorneys that were really fun to work with. So
Yeah, how were they on your bank account?
I think it cost about $12,000 total
That's
to
about
get it patented, which I think is standard. But
yeah. Yeah.
I think they had fun with it because it was for a fuzz pedal, and usually they're dealing with like some horrible company suing another horrible company over, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, like missile technology or something. So I think they're just like, this is really fun. So it was a really positive experience.
That's cool. Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that later on. So have you collaborated with any other amp builders? I know you mentioned the guy from what was it, Sour Mash?
Sour Sound. Yeah.
Sour Sound. Sorry.
I haven't collaborated with anyone. I do have a pretty close relationship with Tim Marcus from Milkman,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and we
Cool.
we kind of help each other out quite a bit. And then Charles from Silktone
Yeah.
as well. And there's a handful of other builders that I think I'm pretty much friends with most of the boutique makers, and it's a small kind of lonely club. And so we just call each other and talk shop and swap ideas, which is fun. Like Eli from Two Rock, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're all great guys, honestly. But we haven't done like a collabs with I do a lot of the collabs with the pedals. Like we collabed with Chase Bus Audio
Yeah.
a few years ago on the Preamp Mark II, and I've done stuff with Non-Human Audio, Electronic Audio Experiments. I'm probably forgetting someone, but yeah, we collaborations are fun. I mean, like I said, it's kind of a small, lonely thing. So if you can work together with someone on something, it's kind of it's a good time.
So how does that kind of work? I mean, you come up with an idea, or they come up with an idea, and they say, "Hey, what are your thoughts?" Or, what would you do differently? Or how does that work?
A lot of it's combining like capabilities. Like
Yeah.
say I'm really good at like designing like an analog, for instance, like the thing with Joel Cordy from Chase Bliss.
Yeah.
He's really good at the technical programming side, and frankly, just kind of the visionary, like envisioning a product that doesn't exist. Like he's amazing at that stuff. I'm really good at like making sure transistors clip in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I have people say that I have a pretty good ear. I think I have an okay ear, but so we took my kind of circuit and applied his kind of technology and sensibilities to it, and so that was just like a good example of designing different strengths and capabilities into one thing. So that's usually what happens. Or like with John from EAE, he really likes my boost circuit into one of his distortion pedals.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the same thing. So we're just like, well, let's make a 2-in-1 pedal.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you have anything else that you're working on right now? Something that's in the works?
Always. Yeah. My absolute favorite thing is chasing down problems or finding problems to solve in
Absolutely.
tube amps, and doing things that like people haven't done before with them, or finding something I can improve on. So I've always got 10 projects going at a time. So we've got I've talked a little about this openly, like I've kind of hinted at it, but we do have like a new version of a reverb tremolo coming out pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
That has a bunch of exciting things about it, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but that's in the works. And then I have a new guitar amp circuit that I'm really excited about, that I've talked about 8 or 9 pedal ideas kind of rattling around. So yeah, I'm always working on stuff.
Always doing something. That's cool.
I love it. Yeah.
What's the timeline on the new amp? Still just kind of messing around with it, or do you have a date set? Or?
It's pretty much no date or anything like that. I'm the challenging thing is figuring out like how to actually release things, because it gets complicated with dealers and distribution, and then I can no longer just make a sweet circuit and show it to a friend or someone and have them buy it or tell their friend about it. It always has to be this like big kind of like chaotic to do where someone's going to get their feelings hurt that they didn't have access to it, or there's a billion demo people out there, and they're all kind of competing to try to like be part of the first run of demos, because then that's good for their channel. So it is like that's probably the least fun part, figuring out how to actually launch a product and get it into the world without trampling on someone's feelings or doing it wrong and losing a bunch of money or whatever. So
wow.
Yeah,
I would think that would be something that you struggled with. But I guess kind of thinking, yeah, it's probably a big project to do that.
It is, yeah, and you have to do it right, and it takes a long time. So I've had like the amp circuit's been done for a few months now.
Sure.
And I'm just now starting to think about like how to actually release it and show it to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always a challenge.
So when you come up with a new design, whether it's an amp or a pedal, do you send a prototype out to people to try it and then ask them for feedback and then sort of tweak it from there, or how does that work for you? How do you know when it's done?
I just kind of know. I don't send stuff out for feedback. I'm kind of a jerk that way.
No.
I probably should, but I'm usually dealing with other things, and usually what happens is maybe I'll have an artist or something stop by the shop and like, oh, hey, check this out. Check out this cool thing I'm working on, and they'll plug in, and maybe they'll say something like, oh, I wish this cabinet was a little bigger, or it can't quite get enough treble for this guitar that I'm using.
Yeah.
And so that there's kind of that thing, but in terms of sending stuff out, I like being in the room and hearing what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. I get that, definitely.
Yep.
So how do you see the role of hand-wired amps evolving in an increasingly digital world? You've got your Kempers out there and all kinds of other, modeling amplifiers and whatnot. How do hand-wired amplifiers kind of play into that?
Well, I see them as the original article that's being copied. Like a Kemper couldn't exist without a tube amp. It's emulating a tube amp, and a lot of people look at tube amp design as all stuff that was done in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
And there's been no progression. Me and a handful of other builders can say otherwise. Like there are progressions, there are new sounds, there are more innovative ways of doing things. So Kemper's 2 steps behind. Like, first of all, they're not the original article. It's like a computer that's going to be bricked in 10 years.
Yeah.
You're just going to throw it in a landfill.
It's true.
You can't repair it. And then it can't do anything new and innovative and different. It just copies what's already been done.
Yeah.
So it used to stress me out a little bit, especially when it first came out and people are like, oh, this really, you can't tell the difference between this and like a Marshall or whatever. And at first I was like, oh, maybe I should get into Kemper profiles. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't even really worry about it.
Yeah. Have you been approached to do profiles and stuff like that?
Yeah, we have. We did our own for a second, but the first email I got where someone was like not happy with the profiles for whatever reason, it's like, dude, I'm not going to argue with this person about like this digital representation of my amp. Like that's just like,
right.
That's just demeaning. Like I'm done. I'm out of the profile game.
No, I hear you, and I talk to a lot of other amp builders, and everybody kind of feels the same. There are some people that have kind of embraced them, and they're looking for ways to sort of improve that technology, and then there are other people that are more like you. That they think that the originals are the originals, and the Kempers and the modelers, they're just copies of the real thing. So I kind of get it.
I mean, it's like asking a guy who crafts, pianos. It's like to work on a piano algorithm or something. It's like,
Right.
I make the real thing, man.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. So what do you think about the quality of tubes nowadays? Any thoughts on that? And how do you think about NOS tubes, or how do you feel about NOS tubes in comparison?
I can. NOS tubes are awesome. I have a huge collection of them. Like, I don't really nerd out on them that much because I'm not that interested in doing something that's not scalable.
Yeah, yeah,
What I would rather do is manipulate the actual circuits that I make to sound good with modern production tubes,
yeah.
which you can do.
I think that that's what you have to do nowadays. But yeah,
Yep. So I design everything around JJ. I I love them. I can hear the difference between like a JJ 6L6 and an RCA, black plate,
yeah,
or whatever. I can, but if it's changing a couple values or getting something to distort in a different way, there's ways around, the component thing. You can make something sound sweeter just by using math. You
yeah,
don't have to have the magic tube.
yeah, yeah. I guess a lot of people are sort of looking at it that way. I talked to Dave Friedman not too long ago, and he kind of thinks the same way. So I guess there are definitely ways around that. Oh,
Yep. Yeah. Sort of like asking, like, would you want to be younger? You want
yeah,
to be 20 again? It's like, yeah, it'd be cool, but like I can't. I'm
exactly.
old.
So Chris, what's your flagship amp right now?
I would say that's probably our bell ringer, which is the Monarch preamp, but we have we've added, it's an EL34 amp. It's 35 watts. It can go between tube, like it could go from like a wide open solid state rectifier, but then we actually use a vacuum tube to do power scaling in it as the kind of pass element. So it goes down to like 1 watt all the way up to 35 watts, and it's just killer. You could do it in a 112 combo, and you basically have a something that functions sort of like a hot rod deluxe or whatever the 112 is, which is like the ubiquitous,
Yeah.
gigging amp, but it sounds, probably 4 times better.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And it does the power scaling, so you can get the power tube distortion and everything.
That's excellent. So when you started getting into power scaling, were you, I don't want to say copying, were you inspired by other designs out there, or did you just come up with something, new and original?
Well, no one's ever used a tube to do power scaling before. People generally use MOSFETs.
Yeah.
Which they work really great as, super accurate regulators with low, series resistance and everything.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do something different. I don't like putting silicon stuff in tube amps, and I was looking at, I believe it was an old Showbud amp where they used a 6L6 as, was it Showbud? But it was an old pedal steel amp. They used a 6L6 as a voltage regulator to regulate the tube screen supply, which is just a voltage in the amp that should be pretty static. Like, you don't want your screens moving up and down, so they just used a power tube as a voltage regulator. And I looked at that, I was like, that's really cool. I understand how that works, and I can make it variable. You just put it on a pot or a resistive switch, and you can actually move that voltage up and down to make it variable, which is exactly how the MOSFET power scaling works. But the tube has the added benefit of having its own like anode resistance, which simulates a tube rectifier. That's literally why a tube rectifier sounds the way it does. Everything's being dragged across a plate, and so it sags. And so I was thinking, instead of a MOSFET, I'll just use a tube so it can get like the tube rectifier sound and get the sag and the kind of bloom of the note and it's something that I understand and is easy to repair. If the tube goes out, you just throw another tube in it. Those power MOSFETs that people use for power scaling just blow up all the time.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Huh.
Well, so if they're depending on the designer, some of the designs are okay, but a lot of them, have problems where you have to change the MOSFET out. So, and I'm hoping other builders actually start using my tube power scaling because I think it's really cool.
So is that something that you would want to license?
No, I'm kind of out of the patent IP game. I'm just like, I actually like wrote up the schematic and sent it to a handful of builders and said, hey, just so you know, I think you should use this because it sounds better.
Yeah.
Like I sent it to like Tim at Milkman and Charles at Silktone and a couple others. Yeah, I don't know. Life's too short to.
No, I hear you, man.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
we're close to running out of time here. So I got one last question for you. So was there a particular moment when you felt like Benson amplification had like kind of made it?
Yeah, there was like kind of an exponential growth that happened around, I want to say 2016.
Yeah.
We were kind of all alone in Portland, and I didn't have any connections with any other builders or the market in general. It was just weirdos who found us on the internet or touring bands that I was friends with just from being in the Northwest.
Yeah.
And then I think around 2016 we kind of hit like the international stage. Like people were talking about them, and we just saw our sales just, and then all of a sudden we couldn't really keep up that well. So
Wow.
I would say that was the year that the business actually took off and worked.
Wow, that's a great problem to have. So
Yep.
So from there, did you, kind of expand your operations and hire more people, bigger space, all nine?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really conservative when it comes to growth. So, I hired like 2 or 3 more people, and then maybe the next year I hired another couple. I didn't want to get in over my head because I had seen other manufacturers who had that similar kind of level of growth just get way too big and then make it unsustainable, or they come out with something that has a problem and they've made 1,000 of them before they even know it. So I've been, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I'm not trying to get rich quick.
Yeah.
Or something. I want to make it slow and sustainable, and put food on the table, but I'm not trying to like cash in and get out. So
Gotcha.
yeah, slow's the name of the game for me.
Very cool. All right, Chris. Well, thanks for your time today. I truly appreciate it, and good luck with the new projects that you're working on. And your stuff is obviously doing very well, and comes highly recommended from a lot of players that I talked to. And I'm dying to try out some of your new stuff.
Dude, thanks so much for having me on. It was fun catching up with you.
You too, man. All right, we will talk soon.
All right, take care.
All right, easy. All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me on.